I real? Am I AI? You know, that's going to become a huge challenge going forward. So sharing that as a little bit of an insight, I think it's a really fascinating story, and it's something that, you know, I can just imagine that person who transferred the 25 million falling for those deep fakes, very realistic AI. They sound the same, look the same, they mimic the conversation of the exec team. So real, and I think the title of this talk sort of sets the scene. It is a tsunami, and I think there is a lot of technology coming, and how do we keep up with it? You know, you can't really blame that person. You know, I think we'd all fall for that, but I think we've got to learn fast. We've got to keep ourselves educated. Regulation will eventually, you know, catch up in a few years' time, but right here and now, this is happening, and if we're uneducated, we will end up being caught out either in business or in our personal lives by scams and disingenuous use of AI. So today, I'll be setting a bit of a baseline and using what I would say is one of the most remarkable pieces of technology that's publicly available, which is ChatGPT. You know, we can all access the GPT-4.0 large language model. I'm going to share a few examples in the early part of this presentation. And as Raffaele said, there's no slides. Those examples are just going to be to baseline, get everyone on the same page before I then go into a custom assistant that has been sort of pre-trained, if you like, on a specific use case. And we're going to dive into a few supply chain scenarios. And I would encourage you, as we go through those scenarios, to fire in any questions and any comments as we go through. Certainly, the first question I always like to ask an audience, and this is, you know, what does GPT stand for?
It's an open question to the audience, folks. I mean, you can write it down on the chat. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire GPT? So be our guest. I mean, don't Google up, of course. I mean, that's the purpose of the exercise, right? I mean, how knowledgeable are you in real time? So anyway,
yeah.
Hey, there is an answer coming soon. So Julian is writing. So T for text, question mark?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? I think we've all been on this, you know, ChatGPT was launched in November 2022, and it's still quite, you know, no one's at fault here at not knowing what a GPT means. I just think there is just so much information to learn in a very short space of time on this new topic that has landed on into our lives and is going to have a huge impact. So what I will demonstrate today, and you guys, I expect that there may be some regular users of GPT. I don't know how many of you, if there was to be a quick show of hands, I think you can use the react button. You know, how many of you guys are using custom GPTs or ChatGPT on a daily basis? Interestingly, I asked that same question to an audience of 30 chief supply chain officers, and out of that 30, only 50% had ever even logged into ChatGPT, and this was only 2 weeks ago. And the other 50% had barely used it. There was only one person out of 30, you know, C-level executives in supply chain management that were actively using AI on a day-to-day basis. There was a small sample, 30, but I think it just goes to show we've all got a long way to go to get ourselves up to speed with what AI can do. And unfortunately, it's not easy because it's changing on a daily basis. So as soon as you think you know what's going on, there's another model it seems like every day there is some news which changes the capability. You know, now it's all about they can ingest voice and visualizations, and as well as text. It's multimodal. It's lots of things. So what I'm going to explain is where I believe there's a hell of a lot of value in business applications of these models. Before I do, though, I think it's very important to note that to make Gen AI or large language models work in an enterprise environment, there is a lot of stitching together of technologies that needs to happen to get accurate results. And you'll hear, and you may have heard this already, the phrase chain of thought and reasoning. So in the context of assistance, what is chain of thought and reasoning? So I want to explain this just as a bit of a baseline. And I think it's important, you know, to simplify this. Chain of thought, reasoning is very similar to how we as humans interact. So we have logical next steps to our thoughts. And when you're tackling very complex problems, you derive at perhaps a broad thesis, and then you go deeper and deeper. It's no different when you have a conversation. You might ask somebody, well, who won the football yesterday? And they will give you the name of the team. And then you might ask, well, you know, how did they win? Or was it a penalty? And then, oh, who took the penalty? So that's a sequence of steps there in conversation where you're gathering more and more intelligence. And that's really important to know when using large language models, because they're very good at taking small steps and substeps, and they're not so good at trying to figure out everything in one go. So when you're using these models, and I'm going to share these prompts, by the way, after this presentation, so don't worry about writing anything down. I think this is recorded as well, but I will share a list of the prompts and some of the instructions that we've put in. So I'm not going to read this out. It's been on the screen for a while now, so you may have had the chance to talk through it. But the concept of, you know, interacting with these models in small steps, and, you know, as you would with a human, and when you're providing results, you know, what are the reasons for that? And we're going to talk through an example of an assistant in a minute. This is just giving you a bit of an overview here of an example question. Why do leaves change colour in the fall? Identify the key concepts: leaves change colour, fall. Recall the relevant information. Deduct reasoning. Chlorophyll gives their colour, etc. So this is a great example. You know, I use the football maybe because the Euros are on at the moment, and it seems like that's all that's on the TV right now.
Certainly.
So, but, you know, there are lots of examples, and there's no better tool to educate yourself on these than ChatGPT, which is why I thought it'd be great to show this. So just taking it now a step further into, well, how can, you know, companies leverage assistants, agents, sub-agents? It's just basically the same thing, chain of thought to solve complex tasks. So, you know, I could have wrote a presentation on this, but what I really wanted to show is just how powerful the tools are at creating this information on the fly. And of course, I could have put this into a presentation and claimed it as my own, but that defeats the purpose here. So AI models are designed to handle a wide range of tasks. So demand forecasting, inventory management, supplier management, order processing, customer service. So you can just imagine all of this AI doing 80–90% of what humans can do. And you may ask yourself, then, what are the humans going to do? But I can come on to that in a moment. I don't think there's any risk of humans not being in the loop at this stage. But I think, autonomous transformation will happen. At the moment, we're at the stage of decisioning and co-pilots. The last 10 years was all about RPA and robotics. That's sort of old hat now. So there's a new world, and it's going to become more autonomous and very heavy to involved in AI. So
question, Alex. Then, just for me, I mean, these assistants are. Can I just say it's? Assistants like in a human understanding of what an assistant is. The kind of support, an imaginary person that can do that kind of task. Yeah. Or should I understand that differently?
Well, I'm going to bring it all to life. So I'm going to show you how to build your own assistant. So that would mean, Raffaele, after this call, you will have your own assistant within GPT 4.0, or at least you have the ability to make your own assistant. But to sort of answer this, we've got assistants, agents, sub-agents. Effectively, these are a set of instructions that are pre-designated to carry out a specific objective. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail in a second, but just think of it around, well, rather than having one, human mind that can do everything, I think we will get there, and, we all talk about this happening in the next 5 years, but at the moment, it's not quite there. So you break down those tasks and that chain of thought into smaller subtasks, and those smaller subtasks can be assistants that focus on one thing. So a really good example in supply chain is, the time to source or the time to procure. So
excellent.
Knowing if I were to order 500 tons of steel from X location, China most likely, the time to procure might be 8 weeks. So you may have assistants that work within either a specific node, is what we call them. So it might be steel. They may be experts in everything to do with steel and logistics of steel. Or they could be more horizontal, where they're expert assistants and know everything there is about the time to procure. So that very simple task, you can start to get accurate results. And this is where, the whole world falls apart in enterprise if it's not accurate. So by being very focused, your assistant, you can think of it like a personal assistant, but it happens to be a large language model that's been given instructions. They become very good at a certain task and subtask. And what that might mean is, the sub-agent, for example, might be working on how long it takes for the boat to leave from one location to the next. What is the freight time? The next sub-agent...
As a matter of fact, Alex, hold on just a second. There is a question. I'll try to read it. It's from the audience and say, what if the agent, in parentheses, and the agents of the agent
Correct.
fails on managing the supply chain, and the disruption in the supply chain leads the senior leadership team, the real human guys, decide to fire the agent for underperformance? Question mark.
Great question. Great question. So let's take that example. So the sub-agent has calculated it's going to take 8 weeks to get from point A to B. And that's just the freight time for the shipping. But what about the time to pass customs? Is it 1 day or 15 months? So you could have another sub-agent that's very highly trained on working out customs and excise and that sort of time. Those two subtasks will inform the agent who answers the question, which is, well, how long do I need to have to procure this particular item? And it might be a series of adding up 5 or 6 things to give that answer. And in the question, there's a really great question. I don't have the answer to this, but you see the problem. It highlights the problem is, well, where was the mistake made? And how do we improve the accuracy of results from large language models? And that's really what a lot of enterprises and technology providers like ourselves are spending a lot of time doing. So at this stage, you'll hear the phrase human in the loop, human in the loop. What does that mean? Everybody is encouraged not to thoroughly or outrightly rely on LLMs. You can rely on machine learning at this stage because accuracy levels are up at 99.9%. But for large language models, some prompts may get you a good result, some might get you a terrible result. So you've got to then understand, well, what are they good at and what are they not so good at? And once
sorry, that's a good question. I apologize interrupting you, but I'm just thinking louder. But it is assumed that AI is perfect. Let's say it's, but then no. What you're saying is that we have to be there. And I think the question from our audience, I believe, is someone that uses it. I presume. So it proves that we still need to have an eye and recognize where they are outperforming and performing well, and where they need to keep learning, because it's probably something that needs a little bit of time. I mean, they will come to that perfection. Yeah. Is it right what I'm saying, Alex?
Yeah. So any platform that's going to scale and be successful, i.e., be accurate, will need to have a method of retraining its data. So when a mistake is made, or an inaccuracy, or an error, etc., it needs to not continue to make that. So that's where we have that continuous feedback loop, and the human in the loop can spot that. And the whole challenge is, how do we make that so it's more efficient than the alternative? So, for example, I'll give you a real life example of analyzing a 700-page master service agreement with a freight company. So
that's a good one.
Really good example. If I was to sit down and find 5 or 6 key clauses, so I want to find, the pricing, I want to find the data protection clause, I want to find the cybersecurity limits. Let's just go with 3. That's going to take me potentially a few hours, maybe, to go through that 700-page document with a level of confidence that I've not missed anything, and I think I've found what I need, or it doesn't exist.
And that's one contract. I mean, imagine that I have 1,000 suppliers, and I need to check if contracts that were made, I don't know, 5, 4, 10 years ago are holding those clauses. I mean, it's huge. I mean, the amount of work is huge. So, by the way, and I just read an article few months ago that Siemens and Walmart were using chatbots to negotiate the contracts.
Yeah.
So it's essentially an AI that is dialoguing with suppliers to reach an agreement. Of course, on small categories or spend that are not critical. So it's happening already.
Absolutely, and it makes sense where there are commoditized items, where the parameters are less complex. Then that would be a very good starting point for autonomous negotiation, for sure. And it's all happening.
And Alex, and sorry, and I'm surprised the audience is not asking. I'll provoke with this, but most of the things that I'm reading now, demand forecasting, or the example that you were just making about launching a purchase order, or let's say scheduling purchase order, people would think that the ERPs are set for it. But I mean, having done that for plus 32 years, I mean, what I'm finding with, and I'm stopped here, but what I'm finding is that the way you set up the ERPs, it's garbage in, garbage out, as everybody knows. So what I'm thinking is that this tool, I'll call it tool now, let's see how do we call it in the future, this assistant, let's say, let me use your wording, it will probably be a check and balance of probably where the mistakes are in this input or setting up ERP data for running algorithms for procuring, demand planning or inventory management, etc., etc. So it's kind of a layer that sits on a decision-making layer. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I'm just throwing ideas here, but I'm looking as a user, correct?
Yeah, you've highlighted a very common, let's say, shortfall of the legacy systems, if you like, is the legacy systems are often reliant on human input. And what that means is they're prone to inconsistencies and errors, etc. And I'll go back now. This is a really good example on agreements. So most agreements in any organization do not cover total spend under management. Often they're in several different locations. So a typical global enterprise, might have, let's say, 10 to 15. Some of our customers have got 60 to 100 ERP systems. So just imagine, well, how do I actually understand what's going on if I've got 60 systems all in silo? And then if you go into your contract database and only 5% of the contracts are there, and then to make matters worse, the data's been input from the contract by a human. So they've only actually put in the start date and they've not bothered with anything else. And this is just a typical, so the data in that ERP or in, the contract repository in this example is incomplete and inconsistent. So how do we get that data in? Well, let's use AI. And then how do we make sure that data is accurate? Well, let's keep a human in the loop. And going back to that 700-page MSA, well, if the AI can take a snapshot of the start date and also put the start date into a structure within the system, all of a sudden I'm now just looking at a picture from the contract and the start date, and I haven't got to go through 700 pages of the document to check if it's accurate. It's side by side. And you just extrapolate that out to maybe 10 or 15 different things, like I mentioned, the cybersecurity, the data protection. You can check an entire contract, whether the data has been extracted accurately in 30 seconds, as opposed to it taking 2 hours. So keeping a human in the loop to ensure accuracy becomes.
And in that line of thought, Alex, there is another great question. I think we have an expert in the audience, by the way. In terms of governance, when an error is made, inaccuracy is observed, should we put in place a pool of experts, let's say in supply chain in our case, to adjust the model in exchange of one supply chain director who might make a solo run management call and distort the model? That would avoid the impact of the future and will avoid perpetuating the error / inaccuracy. Yeah, we can debate here, right? I
mean, there's a fantastic stat around the capability of enterprise employees at any one time, because 60% are overconfident and incompetent. So what that means is there's a lot of people in enterprise roles that actually don't know what they're doing, but think they're doing the right thing. So it's a great question, because how this is governed and who effectively has the authority to spot that inaccuracy and also correct it for next time becomes the challenge. And then, how do we is there a committee? Is there, double sign off? Is there a group of people? Again, it will all depend on the benefit cost conversation. So, if there's a big opportunity or it's big numbers, you're going to actually get more and more people looking at it. If somebody's ordered a pencil off Amazon, you're not going to be so bothered about much due diligence on your stationery, for example, because there's no competitive advantage there. So you'll find a lot of the AI applications, like always, will be focused on revenue opportunities. And as we know, supply chain management can often get pushed down the pecking order. But yes, it's a real challenge to data governance, your architecture, the design. There's a lot of, and one of the main reasons for I think that often gets overlooked is the ontology of how this all fits together. And what do I mean by that? So if you've got several different systems that are all trying to speak to each other to provide a outcome, like, for example, the time to procure, I might need to know 5 or 6 different things, and I need to know how big the order is from the order management system. I need to know the location. I need to know the supplier. You know, all of a sudden, I've got, let's say, 50, 100, maybe even 1,000 attributes. How do I know how all these all fit together? So the benefits of going to third parties who specialize in this is they've worked out how all those things fit together before for other companies. So again, when deciding on, well, should I build my solution in-house? Should I use a third party? I think you've got not to underlook the time and effort to work out how everything fits together, which can be summarized as, you know, the ontology of all the attributes within these data points.
It's true that we went through the pages quite fast, but if you I don't know if you are able to go back a little bit upward, but I was surprised. I mean, in a matter of few minutes, I mean, you or the assistant, let me just talk to the guest now. I mean, he or she or it is present, but then voila, I mean, we're talking about performance measure, we're talking about inventory management, we're talking about forecast accuracy. Gosh, I mean, we spent a year in our master to learn all these things, and in a matter of, I think, I mean, in a matter of few minutes, I mean, the machine just came with that. I mean, my question will be how fast this knowledge, I mean, how fast this knowledge is generated, I think is real time. I mean, it's just accessible because it's published somewhere, collects that data and interprets it for us. Is that what is happening here, Alex, or?
Yeah. So,
or are you writing all these things in the screen? No, I'm kidding. But anyway,
I think the assistants, you know, they're going to end up replacing competence, because the breadth and depth of knowledge in these models is so vast that it will become more competent than any one human being. So you're absolutely right. You know, the world of education is turned upside down by these technologies, and it's about adapting. You know, if you look at PwC, they're now the biggest subscriber to OpenAI, and their entire workforce of the enterprise access. So they have very quickly understood that knowledge is no longer sellable. So they're now pivoting to, how do I become an AI expert so that I can leverage that knowledge? And there is the stages to, you know, effectively taking the right decision. You've got data, you've got information, then you've got knowledge, and then you've got the experience. So, you know, knowledge is still not enough to be able to effectively make the right decision at all times. But it's interesting to see how close these models get over time to making the right decisions.
But imagine that I'm here in my factory. I mean, whatever. I mean, pick and choose. I don't know, bottles, or I don't know, drinking, gas, whatever. I mean, Coca-Cola. Let's pick Coca-Cola. And I'm here in my desk. I'm the supply chain director. How can I do all these things that we're talking here? Because so far I've been doing just kind of enhanced Googling. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I mean, I'm just asking, and of course, ChatGPT for those I have tried. And by the way, there is a big discussions around the academic world on how students are leveraging on ChatGPT, but also professors and the academic corp are leveraging on that. But anyway, I will come to that probably in a later webinar. But imagine myself, I'm here in my desk, and it's a Wednesday, by the way, and I'm here struggling with you know, the classics. I mean, shipping or not arriving, inventory management. I don't know. Is it something that you can show us that can, I don't know, let us play that role? I don't know if you have anything in your hand or in your mind that we can.
Absolutely, Raffaele. Let me let me move on. So the first 20 minutes of this session was really just giving you a bit of a baseline. Anybody can do what I've just done. I'm going to share the prompts, but I'm starting to hopefully develop how best to get out of something out of these models. And again, you can ask ChatGPT to review your prompts. And for example, the next
Hello, because so far, sorry, I apologize interrupting you again. I'm so really sorry for that, but I guess it's worth what you just said. I mean, went through what is GPT. I think we're all wrong, even myself. I didn't know what was GPT, so thank you for that. Then you introduce us to these agents, assistants, some sub-assistants, or how do you call them? Now you're talking about prompts, and now you got me a little bit off guarded. What is that before we jump into my desk in Coca-Cola company? I don't know. So, hey, by the way, I'm not a fan of Coca-Cola, so watch out. I mean, drinking soda company. Okay. So watch out.
That's okay. So look, a prompt or an instruction are the same thing. Effectively, it's something that it's a set of instructions. It's often text, but it can now be voice, of course, and it can also be visual, etc. So it's multimodal now. But I'm effectively asking for an outcome from the large language model. I'm asking it to generate, these are generative models, an outcome. So here is an example of an outcome that is repetitive. So it's got an objective. I'll read this through. Apologies, it's a Spendkey one, but it works for anything. And I'm going to give the example, I'll take the challenge up of Coca-Cola in a minute, and we'll apply it to some supply chain. So it's asking to construct a comprehensive and compelling list of savings opportunities and how it can leverage spend and contract analytics. The preparation steps, this is mind-boggling in itself. The model will now analyze the prospect's website and gather information about the business. You can ask it to open financial reports. You can upload financial reports. So you can effectively give it a lot of information about Coca-Cola in this example. Before it even starts, it will know the entire history of Coca-Cola and have read its financial report before it starts giving you the advice. Then we've got some general guidance areas, so structure, content, presentation, etc. So key responsibilities: help the user organize their thoughts into a logical structure, suggest improvements, highlight weaknesses in their proposals, saving strategy, identify 20 types, etc., incorporate right sizing. I'm not going to read it all out, but read the company's website.
I hear
convincing arguments.
I hear you are very instructive. You are very directive. I mean, you are giving instructions like clear as water. I mean, you are saying what needs to be done. My question is, would the AI will be able to create, imagine an instruction that is an open end.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you
now. Be free and propose me something. Oh, go for it, man.
So
as I said,
what I wanted to
I said at the beginning, this will be an open AI presentation. So we're going to be open here. Yeah. Go for it, man.
So what I wanted to do is just show you what a good instruction looks like. But again, you can also put that instruction into ChatGPT and say, well, can you improve this instruction and rewrite it to make it better? So the company is Coca-Cola. I've put in the website, and I'd like to focus on logistics and warehousing to begin. So this assistant has been asked to come up with efficiencies, savings, and now we're saying be specific to logistics and warehousing. And I'm going to show you real life example now of the chain of thought, because it's going to give you initially the sort of high level list of areas. You can see I've asked in the instructions for it to respond in a table format.
Shoot, this is crazy. This is just crazy.
Giving me the examples in a table format. And it's going to go through and give me a whole bunch of examples that I've asked it to do. So
wow,
that's the first.
Impressive.
I mean, you can see here. I mean, I'm not sure what the content of your syllabus is for, but you will have covered off a lot of these, I'm sure, in terms of process automation, demand management.
Certainly.
And it's gone through here before states, after states. It's given me examples, you know, of what that actually means. And what I would say is the first response from ChatGPT is always, you know, quite broad. And
Correct.
then you want to sort of double down and really get into the weeds of the specific problem you're trying to solve.
Well, I hope, Alex, sorry, I hope the audience is witnessing, and I need to stress this, guys, because I mean, spending 32 years of my life trying to get these tables out by my own means, and now this man comes in a webinar, in my webinar, in a matter of a couple of clicks, is telling me what to do with my business. It's just scary, Alex. I mean, I tell you, but keep going. I mean, how deep we can go now, because it's true. I mean, it's not raw, but it's a high level kind of optimization, costing out, or improving a margin and so forth. And this is a classic. Don't get me wrong, guys.
Yeah.
But how far you can go now? I mean,
well, we can go very far, but let me, you know, let's just say, and this is what a lot of execs want to do, right? Out of these examples, which one is the most out of the box? And do you think, and I should say, and you think...
Oh, I like that. Will impress the US board. Oh, shoot, I need to see that.
At our next meeting. But let's put out of the box, so it's going to give me something a little bit less, you know, a bit more unordinary. So this is a very real, right? People want to impress the board. They want to find something that's not been done that much before. So it's a little bit more out of the box thinking, and you can ask it to think out of the box, be a little bit more cutting edge. You can add it to ask risk. You can ask it for something that's completely unique and hasn't, or do give me something that's never been done before, and it will start to do it. But what I'm trying to demonstrate here is you need to be able to work with these models to guide it on this chain of thought, and once you do so, it's so
sorry, Alex, and again, the audience is quite active tonight. So anyway, thank you, guys. I think you are, you know, honoring the promise. And our colleague is saying, I don't think it's scary. I totally concur with you. I probably said it's scary, but I'll explain why. I believe this is a great opportunity to reallocate your FTEs, I mean your employees, on a high value task that are not yet automated. Now, I think here it's borderline. I think we are talking experts here, and there is a few people in the room that I appreciate it. And the concern, well, the concern, I don't want to quote it again, adjectives, but this is the added value. You know, when you bring, you know, MBA people from business schools like the MBA that we're providing, is to bring that kind of I would say solution proposal. Now, the tool or this intelligence is stepping up here. I would say, just anticipating a little bit, you guys, the reaction is the implementation of that. And this is where I think, I mean, unless you tell me, Raffaele, hey, watch out. I mean, in 5 years from now, there will be a robot with your face, man, walking in the warehouse and talking to the employees on how to deploy a WMS. That would be lovely. But anyway, this is the bridge that I don't see still. Sorry, this is the pond that I don't see still a bridge, you know, being built. By the way, we have also Julian. To attain such result, what do we need? A good prompt, GPT-4, question mark, or we need more like the solutions you provide?
Okay.
I mean, then a couple of things at the same time, but probably let's start from the last one. Do we need ChatGPT-4? I think the answer is yes, because you are able to go deeper. But I think you can do it on GPT-3, if I'm not mistaken. Alex, you are the expert.
Look, I mean, the reality of it is everything I'm showing you to now is commoditized, right? So there's no competitive advantage in everything I'm showing you because anyone can do it. You can now do exactly what I've just done. You've got the training, you've got the video, you can cut and paste the prompts, and you can build your own GPT. So the goalposts have moved, but how do you actually make this into solving the problem? Because right now it's not solved the problem. you know, it's just giving me a lot of knowledge, and what's knowledge without action? You know, completely useless. So, you know, we're in danger of almost information overload. And then how do we realize? So the reality of, you know, to get to an outcome, then that's where you require a whole bunch of things to be stitched together, to get context, to get accuracy, and then to make recommendations that are precise and reliable. And that's where, you know, it's a platform play. It's a potentially multiple platforms speaking to each other. You know, you might have one platform that's very good at extracting data from documents, another that's very good at doing spend analysis, another that's very good at inventory management, another that's very good at duty and excise rates. So you can see, I mean, enterprise is complex. The key, I think, to starting with AI is tackle something that's not overly complex. I mean, I'll just take that example. Imagine if you could identify the time to procure for every single, you know, if you're a large manufacturer with 40,000 SKUs, how do I know the time to procure for those 40,000 SKUs? You know, all of a sudden, it's a very simple question, right? But if I could get accurate information that was real time, and I could also predict that actually, if there's a global crisis, I'm not going to be able to get face masks, it might take 2 years. You know, those are the sorts of use cases that we could start to model.
But here there is another good statement from our friends in the audience. The adoption rate is exponential. So what an MBA is able to show off today will become will be common grounds tomorrow. I agree, implementation is still the weak link in our industry. So, well, here we are hovering over educational stuff and how business schools or schools in general are going to be in the future. And it's a very good subject, by the way. I'll probably search in launching a webinar there. But here, I put myself in the shoes of someone that doesn't know anything about supply chain management. Alex, imagine a neophyte. I mean, someone that has never heard anything about supply chain management, and all of a sudden, you're putting this person in the situation of resolving Coca-Cola's working capital or cost optimization issues through the supply chain levers. So it's a question, but anyway, it's a dilemmatic question. I mean, whether this individual will be able to understand what we are reading here. Of course, this is a community of experts that are, of course, witnessing this tonight, and everybody knows what is, you know, inventory management, forecast accuracy, and that kind of thing, WMS, and so forth. I think that person with no knowledge will struggle, but I think it will have a learning curve that it will be faster than a classic, let's say, way of learning. Now it's the human capable of absorbing so much knowledge, new knowledge. Imagine myself intervening a human, you know, from surgery point of view, and I'm launching the same prompts, how to extract a liver from a human being. I don't know how far I can go in implementing it. So even though the prompt, it will give me all the tools, right, Alex? I mean, it will go as far as giving me the video and even how to put the hands. I mean, I wonder, I mean, if that bridge will be ever, you know, done.
Yeah,
I hope I was clear, you know what I mean?
I believe it will. So I believe, and at Spendkey, we're launching a co-pilot for making these spend decisions. And the whole concept is to ensure and reduce value leakage. So at the moment, unfortunately, in large enterprise, there are lots of commercial decisions that are made by people that are not commercially trained, or potentially to use your words, don't have that knowledge of supply chain management, right? But they're still making decisions. Correct. They're still making decisions. They've still got this budget of 50 million, but they're doing it off the side of the desk, and they're not an expert. And the business carries on running with all of this leakage. They're making terrible decisions, terrible risks, all the rest of it. That person with better data, recommendations can stop making such bad decisions. So we're democratizing.
Indeed.
So it doesn't have to be the supply chain expert who sat in HQ in, you know, a central location. It could be somebody on the ground in the middle of Africa, for example, that perhaps otherwise would not have that data, would not have all the information that we've just shown, but can now make a decision that's 15 times more effective than what they were used to.
Indeed.
That data is now available. The recommendation was done for them, and they just click the green button instead of normally clicking the red. And that, I think, is what
I think one thing
is, and I think there's some way to go. And yes,
correct.
Some decisions, again, going back to governance, will need extra layers of governance. You know, going back to the 25 million transfer at the start, you know, what sort of governance do we have now around deep fakes? Well, is there some sort of code that we have, or do we have to meet in person for every 25 million pound transaction? I would say, you know, that might be the case going forward.
Let me, because we have 6 minutes to go, and I'm still seeing questions in the chat, by the way. But just as an example, because that can be the middle point, or that can be a way to go for us, let's say practitioners. I just saw a video, and I think it was on Instagram or one of these social media apps, and it was essentially a kid, a young kid. The father was asking the AI to train the kid on math to resolve problems, but not to give the answer, but to train his son in order to resolve the problem that the father wasn't able to do it. And it worked pretty well, by the way. I mean, the AI didn't provide the answer completely, and it was essentially walking through the solution. So that can be also for us practitioners, guys. I'm not trying to conclude here, but that can be also for us a takeaway that when I don't know something, I probably dive there and try to have a relationship with an entity that is accessing a huge amount of data out there and providing. So why don't we appreciate it, by the way? I mean, by the way, thank you for putting that. There is a last question. I don't know if we're able to, I will read it, but now should supply chain activities be put in a master expert company, the same way procurement have created central purchasing centers? So Envergure being one that is centralizing for Carrefour system. So anyway, it's kind of central supply chain hubs that can serve multiple companies. So question number one. And then, is the future made of central supply chain master companies? Same person. So I think it's, we call it in the past consortia, and it's essentially a cluster of, experts in a domain like purchasing, in indirect procurement, for instance, and then buying for multiple companies, or food, like, the example of our colleague that is probably in that area. So he wonders if the same can happen in supply chain. But I don't know if AI will help in boosting that. But why not? I mean, with the huge intelligence, with the amount of data that can digest, why not? But Alex, what is your thought about it?
Yeah, so I think the concept of central governance and local variations is not a new one. I think what will happen is there'll be more decentralization, more local variations. Everything's going to become hyper bespoke, because we've got the ability to tailor to certain use cases with this vast amount of, processing power and information that's available. Arguably, how successful have centralized teams been in enterprise? They've always failed to get spend under management. They've always had maverick spend. They've always failed to get adoption of systems, and it ends up being a bit of a blend. And I see that trend happening more and more, where it will be less centralized and more local variations. But I think there is certainly a center of excellence that can help with the adoption and the rollout of AI, just as there is center of excellence helping with procurement policy. But I just think there's going to be more local variations as opposed to the centralized model change. There would be more local variations because we just got the ability to do a lot more, a lot quicker. You can see what I've just done in a few minutes. We can do this in software now.
Exactly. Today,
60% of software code is written by AI today. 60%. So this isn't a new thing, guys. AI is taking over. And you look at content online now. Again, a lot of that is Gen AI enhanced, if you like. So I don't have the answer, but that's my view.
Well, I mean, with that, I will complete it with 5 and 6 and 7th PLs. Today we have. I think AI will enhance these service providers, and will probably be, as our colleague was saying, a kind of central hub for supply chain or supply chaining multiple companies. Wow. Listen, it was a great time. We consumed the whole hour, by the way. And so thank you very much for your resilience to the team out there. Thank you, Alex, for your kindness and sharing. And thank you by the way, to the people out there, there will be replay on that. I think we posted again on LinkedIn. So just follow us, because I will be announcing other webinars, but also you will be able to review those that have been registered in the past. So, hey, Alex, a big thank you to you. Spendkey is your company. Didn't talk about it, but anyway, I think the people have all your references. Don't hesitate in reaching out to Alex. And of course, you are welcome to reach out to the MBA since the doors are open, and we'll be pleased to talk about these and other subjects during the master. So anyway, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alex. Stay safe. And for those that are going to be on the 28th of July, there's another webinar on same pitch. I hope you like that as well. And again, thank you, everyone, for being here. Alex, big thank you to you. So stay tuned.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, and just to reiterate, on the left-hand side is my LinkedIn, so you can drop me a LinkedIn message. Obviously, my email's there. On the right-hand side, you can join our waitlist for our co-pilot, and we'll be releasing, updates on AI and supply chain management. So it'll be an interesting newsletter. We also have a whole course on learning AI and procurement as well. It's taking place in September. So if you wanted to do more of what we've done today, then that might be worth a mention. So thank you all for your time.
Correct. Stay connected and network, guys. Network as much as you can. So anyway, thank you, everyone. Have a great one, and keep the knowledge active. So to the next time. Thank you, Alex, again. Okay. Cheers.
Thanks.